welcome to the Gabe and Shey Podcast. My name is Gabe.
Week number 4. My name is Shey.
Week number 4. Week number 4. And today's podcast is actually going to be about the strength of a marriage tested by tragedy. And this is something that happened to us both. We have very different perspectives of it, just because of who we are and, how we see the world. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're gonna talk about that today and how those perspectives, how those work together after everything.
Mm-hmm. I think that's common in a marriage, though, to see tragedy differently. Husbands and wives.
I agree.
We just see things differently.
I 100% agree. To set the scene here, I just want to explain kind of what happened. So, if you listen to any of the earlier podcasts, you know that we got custody of my 3 youngest boys. Okay, so I've got an older son and a daughter that I did not get custody of, but I did
after I moved here.
After Shey moved in, yeah, but we did get custody of my 3 younger boys, and the why is not really important. What really I want to talk about here at the very beginning of this is when they came to live with us, they didn't have good grades. They were a little troublemakers, and we kind of went to work right away to shape them up, right? Mm-hmm. But the real change didn't really start to happen until something else happened. And in 2015, I decided that I was going to do a personal development journey. I was going to purposefully develop my being, who I am, okay? I was going to upgrade my education. I was going to upgrade my perception, my wisdom, my intelligence, all of it. And it started off, and it was very difficult at the beginning, especially, I'm trying to create these new habits. Well, I got news for everybody. Habits don't happen overnight, right? And not only that, but I had to rewire my whole brain in this process for the last 10 years. I had to rewire my entire brain. Mm-hmm. And that is, quite frankly, I didn't think it could be done at first until I started to continue to do it. But what the real reward was I saw the change in my boys. I saw the change in Shey. And what was happening was, as I unlocked my potential, I was almost inviting or giving everyone else permission to unlock theirs. And at least that's what they did. They decided to do that. And so... But
were we changing or were you changing?
You guys absolutely changed. Absolutely changed. And here's the thing. There are parenting styles out there that believe that you need to sacrifice for your children. And I'm going to tell you right now that is so far from the truth. What you need to do is you need to develop self-leadership in yourself, and you need to unlock your own potential, because if they can see that you are willing to and able to do those things, remember that children will model you more than listen to you. Mm-hmm. It's just a fact. You don't have to argue with it. It just is. It is what it is. So it's like a natural law, like gravity. And so if you're modeling change or growth, guess what they're going to model? Growth. Mm-hmm. And you have to be purposeful about it. And as you learn that wisdom, as you gain in wisdom, you'll start talking to them different. You'll start communicating with them different. And then suddenly they're going to start realizing things. They're going to start learning things and want to be better.
Yep. Yeah, there's a difference between parents who continually tell their children, don't do that. You can't do that. Yeah. You shouldn't do that. And parents are like, you know what? Try it. Go ahead and experience it, in a healthy way. I'm saying in a healthy
I'm not really
right?
on board with that kind of attitude necessarily, but I see what you're saying.
But there's a difference between parents who instill that fear into their children. You can't do that, shouldn't do that, whatever. And parents who instill that growth mindset. Yes, try that, experience that, and then go do that.
And then there's some parents out there that maybe encourage it without education. So in other words, encourage you to go do things without educating yourself first.
Sure. I think I was using like the best case scenario example there.
I got you. I understand.
I'll be a little more clear next time.
No, I think I've got a very kind of mindset about this, but the only reason I'm bringing it up is because our boys, they became straight A students. They became all-star athletes. They started to dominate in their field. They started to explore things that they weren't exploring before. And all of this because of purposefully and intentionally unlocking our potential, Shey and I. And so everything was just screaming in the right direction. The end of 2019, 2020, here comes 2020, right? You all know that the Titanic sank in 2020, right? So I'm not spoiling anything for anybody and how 2020 went. Okay. But at the end of 2019, so let me back up just a little bit, because in 2018, we had our construction company. And by the way, I'm a previous owner of 4 successful businesses. I'm a business coach today. I own a business coaching firm here in Ankeny, Iowa. And we own a business coaching firm. Excuse me.
I wasn't going to say anything.
No, it's okay.
We all know the truth.
I can't do what I do if it wasn't for Shey. She knows that that was so blatantly just like, oh, I'm not married. Anyways,
like, I know where you
I know. But we own this firm, and currently we have, the firm that we own is called Action Coach. And we have a franchise with them, and there's over 1,000 coaching firms in over 83 countries. And our firm, in only a year and a half of being with Action Coach, has built ourselves to the top 7% of the entire Action Coach community globally. And this is all based on the things that I'm telling you now, and how to unlock all of that self-leadership and self-potential. So with the boys,
you were talking about 2018 and our previous business.
Oh, thank you. So in 2018, I decided, with all the learning that I was getting from all the books that I was reading and all the education that I was getting, we were going to change our slogan to "We Build People." Well, you can imagine that probably didn't work out the best in a construction company. It didn't work out the worst or anything. It just wasn't designed.
It didn't quite catch on the momentum that we were hoping with, unfortunately, if you don't mind me interjecting.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I feel like since construction can tend to be a very seasonal thing, we, would set up the guys to be successful over the winter, but they weren't actively working with us over the winters. And by the time the next season came around, they were on to the next thing. It's young guys, and so... I felt like we didn't have a whole lot of there was a couple of guys that came back for a few years, but.
Oh, no. My perception is 100% different than that. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, the fact of the matter is I was coaching all of these guys, and all of them were successfully being coached, and their lives were changing to the point where, after even letting a couple of them go because of, they broke some rules. Okay. And I had to let them go. Even after letting them go, they contacted me in the future and just had mentioned that their relationship with me had been profoundly changing for them. So I knew I was onto something. I knew we were onto something where We Build People could happen, but we're doing it at such a light scale at that time. And so we were working with that into 2019. We're still kind of trying to build that up. And then Breaking Bad. So speaking of winter, Shey and I were watching the show Breaking Bad.
Years after it had come out, by the way. I mean, we were years late on beginning to watch it.
So, but we're watching that, and the night before, this would be December 30th, 2019, the night before.
Yeah, the 29th.
Yeah, the night before on the 29th, we had our family Christmas party. And Jaden, Noah, and Elijah. Jaden, by the way, was going to school as a senior at UNI. Actually, I think he was a junior at the end of his junior year at UNI. Anyway, no.
No, he was a senior. Yeah, he was a senior that year.
And he lived up there in his own apartment. And occasionally he would grab the twins. I have twins on the bottom, identical twins, Noah and Elijah. And they were 17 at this time. And occasionally he would take them and drive them up to their apartment, in his apartment in UNI, and they would play board games all weekend. I mean, like literally they just Monster and board games all weekend. That's what they would do. It was kind of just their brotherly love kind of thing. Anyways, they wanted to go that night after the Christmas party, and I forbade it. I said, it's just started snowing. And I said, no, Jaden, if you're so hell bent on going, then you can go, but you can't take the twins.
Yeah. The twins were only 17 at the time, so.
Yep. And just that, and I wanted to give Jaden the power to be responsible for, what he was doing and stuff. And that's why I said, you can go, but the twins can't. And he got mad, but he got over it too. And when he got back to the house the next morning, he was kind of apologetic about his attitude. And they stopped over because they had went and stayed at their mom's house in Perry. And they played video games all night. That's what they ended up doing that night. They played video games. They said it was one of the best nights they ever had. Next day, they drive to my place, and all three of them come in, and basically just to get my blessing to go. That's it. There was nothing really they were getting. They came in to get my blessing, and I'd already been checking the weather. They were on their way to me, and I was already checking the weather, and I'm like, okay, everything looks pretty good. I would make the drive personally. So that being said, off they went. And later, and Shey, this is in the middle of wintertime. It was very cold, so we weren't working outside. I think I just took a day off. It was after the Christmas party. We had New Year's coming up, the next day. So I think we just had those days off. And so we were just chilling. We were just really relaxing and watching Breaking Bad. And they had left, and I hadn't heard from them yet. And so I sent them a text, and my text to them was always sit rep. So SITREP, sit rep.
Situation report.
Situation report. Give me a situation report. So I just say sit rep. And I think I texted it to all three of them at the same time, and no response. I'm like, okay, come on. So then I texted each one of them separately, the same thing, sit rep. And then I tried to call them. And, at this point as a father, you're just like, and I don't remember how you felt at this moment, but because she was sitting next to me.
I did not feel any bad feelings at all. I was like, come on, they're just distracted. Their phones are always on silent. You know what I mean? Teenagers these days, they don't have their ringer on.
Yeah.
They're talking
and by the way, there would have been no reason to feel any different, honestly. Mm-hmm. So even if something bad was going to happen, feeling different about it just means it happens twice to you, right? Yeah. It happens once in your mind before it happens, and then it happens again when it actually happens. So for the love of God, don't make that, what is it? Worrying
is paying a debt you do not owe.
Paying a debt you don't owe, right?
Yep.
So we were kind of past that. We don't do a lot of worrying, okay? And it wasn't today either. It just, they didn't respond. And I was like, okay, of course I'm going to feel something in my heart about it for just a moment, but then I'm going to be like, okay, come on. I don't need to pay this debt, honestly. And then, I don't know, maybe it was like 30 minutes later. We get a knock on the door of our house. Now they went up to you and I, we lived in Madrid at the time. It was about an hour and a half drive from there. And
even if they had stopped for gas or snacks, it would have been a 2-hour max.
Right.
Window of time.
So they were past time. And as I went up to answer the door, before I got to the end of the door, I saw outside was the sheriff of Madrid.
The chief.
The chief. Yeah. Excuse me. And my friends, my heart dropped at that moment. But again, I also reminded myself that, don't make up a story in your head. Let's hear what's going on. Let's just not make up a story. Let's just hear what's going on. And all these things just running through your head. And I go in there and Rick, he comes up to me and he says, hey, I just want to let you know that, your boys have been in a bad accident. And so this was a little bit mind-wrenching for me. I kind of went into protect mode, I think. I think I went into a mode of like, okay, just, he didn't know any really more than that. He just knew that they were in a bad accident, and he wanted to make sure that I knew. And he came inside with us, and I was like, okay, so where? And he said they were in Alden, Iowa. And he said that they had gotten T-boned by a semi-truck. And the car that Jaden was driving at that time was a Mitsubishi Eclipse with a convertible top.
Ragtop, yeah.
And so he said that they were crossing an intersection and then they got T-boned by a semi-truck, a grain truck, an 18-wheeler, and it was full of corn. And, still there were not many details. And
they didn't even know if they were on the way to the hospital. They didn't know which hospital they'd be on the way to at that time. There was literally no details.
No, none.
Except there's been an accident.
And then I remember walking over to the center. We had a center island in the house, and I walked over and I grabbed the charger for the phone because I was going to bring it with us. I figured we might have to stay somewhere. We're just starting to get our shit together and start to pack it up. And I remember Chief saying, he's talking in his walkie-talkie. He said, okay. And he walked up and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said that he goes, your son, Noah, lost his life in the accident. And I got to tell you guys, I think I disconnected from Earth.
You collapsed on the spot.
Yeah, I was, I think I screamed. I disconnected from Earth. Yeah. What he said couldn't possibly be true. I just got done hugging all three of them at the front door. And you have to understand too, that I released them to go. And all of these things were kind of running in my mind in an instant. And so it was just utter terror. So it was about 5-10 minutes. And then I recovered in some form. And then we got in the truck. I grabbed all the stuff and I was kind of angry. And Rick's like, you got to be careful, man. You got to be careful. And I said, tell me about Jaden. Tell me about Elijah. What's going on? He says, I don't know. He says, the other boys, they're taking them to Iowa Falls, I think it was.
They still didn't know which hospital they were at or going to. They didn't know where they were on their way to.
Hardin County is where they ended up going. So we got in the truck and we took off. And I drove all the way there. And on the way there, the weather got worse and worse and worse and worse to where it was treacherous to drive. And they got in their accident right when that started. To this day, we don't know the details. So when we got there, we drove. I think I remember screaming because, when you're driving, so much time to think. Mm-hmm. And I think I remember screaming, no, blah, blah, blah. So we get to the hospital. Jaden who was driving, he was 20 at the time. Jaden was
not conscious.
Not conscious. He was in a coma. And they wanted to life flight him to Mercy, but the weather was too bad, so they had to put him in an ambulance. And so they left before I got to Hardin County or Iowa Falls Hospital there. And which was what it was. Elijah was still there, the other identical twin. And I saw him for the first time, and he was banged up pretty bad in his face. And the doctor said, I asked the doctors, I said, did you guys tell him about his brother? And he said, no, they hadn't said anything yet. And so I went up, you got to go dad mode, right? And I went in there and I looked at him and I just told him I loved him and that everything was going to be okay. And he tried to smile at me.
I think he said something about how's my brother.
I don't think he did say that. No.
Something like that.
No, I think that, and if he did, I don't remember.
Or what about my brother? Or something.
I don't think, I
feel like, and you were like, which one? I don't,
no. Right away. Because right when I saw him smile, I said, Elijah, I said, I got to let you know, buddy, that Noah didn't make it. Noah didn't make it.
Actually, you said your brother didn't make it. He said, which one?
Oh, and then I said Noah. Yeah.
That's where that came from.
I said he didn't make it. And it was Noah. And, he just closed his eyes and felt through it. And we spent some time with him. They needed to transfer him to Mercy as well. Just not as fast as Jaden. Jaden hit the frame of the car with his head and suffered hematoma, epidural hematoma. And they had to drain his brain. They had to
cut his skull wide open.
wide open.
Yeah.
So our 2020 and started with us at Mercy Hospital, with the passing of my twin son, with our twin son, Noah. And I got to tell you, so that the very day, right when so we left Elijah because he got in the ambulance and we were going to all go to Mercy. So we all drove to Mercy, and I'm still unbelievably just distraught, naturally. And then when I got to Mercy, when we went in, a lot of the family had already shown up ahead of us because it was back in Des Moines, and they were all closer. And we finally got there, and Jaden was in there, and I could just go in there, and he wasn't conscious, so he didn't even know we were there or anything, but it was good for us. And immediately I knew that the only freaking way that I was going to get through this thing was to refocus on the value of everything that was in front of me. Because the more I held on to the negative, the more I was trying to resist reality. And as I was resisting reality, it would just cause anxiety and stress.
Well, and honestly, it was difficult to decipher how to even feel in that moment. We had one son who had just been killed in an accident. The next son is in a coma, and they have no answers. They have no idea, is he going to be a vegetable or is he going to be 100% recovered? They have nothing. They don't know. And then we've got the other son who had some minor, broken bones and some minor injuries, but ultimately he was good. And so we've got this grief that we're dealing with, this unknowing limbo that we're dealing with, and this want to celebrate, that we've got Elijah who was safe and sound. And it was just, how are you supposed to feel in that moment? It's an absolute soup of emotion.
I wouldn't challenge anybody on how they felt because, they weren't on the path that I was on. They weren't on the journey that I was on. And for me, though, it was once I realized that I was resisting reality, I turned that off because I couldn't change anything. I couldn't change what happened. All right. The only thing I could literally do, I needed to gain control of something. That was my need at that time. And I think it was a need. I don't know if it was a real need, but I think it was a need. Mm-hmm. I needed to regain control. And the only way that I was going to do that was by finding something real that I could attach myself to. And the fact is that two of my boys made that. And when it comes to gratitude, remember the beginning of this was gratitude in the heart of tragedy, stronger marriage in the heart of tragedy. This is context for that. I was able to find gratitude right at the bed where Jaden was the same day, hours after the accident. And that gratitude was that semi was 6 inches away from taking all three of our boys. And what a much better thing to focus on, because quite frankly, it filled me with power. It filled me with confidence that I could get through something like this, even though, hey, listen, my anxiety still got me, right? They had to give me a couple, anxiety pills or something like that.
Yeah.
It still got me to the point where I still hadn't managed to be good at stopping a panic attack at that time. And so, but what got me through it was being able to focus on that gratitude. So afterwards, I was desperate for Shey to get whatever she needed out of this, at the same time try to feel my own feelings, right? And support-wise, I couldn't have asked for a better person in my life than someone like her that was literally, she rode every single wave that I was on, every single one of them. And I like to think that I rode her waves as well. And in hindsight, we've talked about this today, but you had mentioned that you suppressed a lot of your own feelings in order to make room for mine.
Yeah.
And, she might have worked those out later afterwards. And I'm sure there's some that we both haven't worked out. And, but the fact is that she powered up so much that day and those days. And I was able to really pop through that. So marriage-wise, you guys, if you've got somebody, she could have just, you guys, she could have easily been like, I can't be concerned with your feelings right now. I'm too busy with mine.
Right.
And that never happened. And it's not because her feelings were less than mine. It's just because she knew that in order for us to get through it, that was what she needed to do and where she needed to be strong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes it tough to get through something if both people are absolute messes at the same time. So I feel like we took turns being a mess.
Sure. Yeah,
for
sure.
I also feel like I made some notes about, there was a lot of silent hugs, because what do you even say in those moments to each other, right? We're both
touch.
Yeah. Just being there for each other. I think that you have to learn how to be okay with both the spilling of emotion and the silent moments, the need to be alone for a few minutes, and the desire to be in each other's company at any, and you never know what moment it's going to be, and just finding a way to be okay with that in that moment.
Prior to that, I was kind of a hermit. I didn't really get into the community very much. I did have a men's group that I was part of starting in town, which was an absolutely brilliant. I've got so much gratitude for this group of where I am today. But I didn't realize the power of community until that accident. So much good has come out of that accident that it would be unbelievable of me to not see it. And the fact of the matter is that I get a choice. I get to choose to see those things that have come out of that. And I'll be damned if I'm not going to sacrifice so much and not take something from it that I'm going to be able to use and build upon. Yeah. And maybe inspire others that can handle, that have similar things. I ended up journaling for 40 days publicly.
Online.
Yeah, online. The community came together for our family more than I could. You guys really don't know. The community came together. It exposed me to the community that I didn't even know existed, which just reinforced my previous 2018 of We Build People. I just wanted that now more than ever.
Well, and plus, I think anybody who's been through tragedy of any kind, if you have family that's out of state or out of town, rather than making 45 phone calls and repeating the same story, I think that it was cathartic for you to be able to tell that story one time and reach everybody that really felt like they wanted to be there for us.
I journaled on a regular basis anyways. Mm-hmm. The only difference was, I made it public. And I did that as a thank you to the community. That was probably the last time I was that vulnerable, as opposed to right now, because, fact of the matter is I can't see you guys. So it's pretty easy for me to be vulnerable at the moment, whatever lash we get after this, whatever. Right. But our marriage,
my perspective when the accident happened, you don't know what's going to happen. And I really wondered how we were going to handle it, how we were going to get through it, if we were going to get through it. And thank goodness you and I are both just really patient with each other and very supportive of each other.
And we know how to communicate. Mm-hmm. And actually, that's
we know how to not communicate sometimes. Sometimes you just got to walk away.
The next episode is actually going to be about communication. And this is the communication part's going to be in both business and, our relationship. But just real quick back up, we're running out of time here. But when we did this, the business, about a year later, wasn't about a year, it was 22. Yeah, it was about a year and a half later or so, is when I decided that the construction business I was in was holding me back. And whatever these things that I was learning and experiencing and all these unbelievable things that has happened in my life, I was not going to be helping a bunch of people inside the construction industry. So we brought it to this. And so far I've been surrounded and helping people now so much that it's fulfilled me more than you could possibly imagine.
We have had so many amazing people come into our lives in the last 2 years.
It's absolutely unbelievable. Yep. And so grateful is an understatement. Mm-hmm. And I can assure you that gratitude definitely leads our marriage, leads our business, it leads our life. And it was a work to get here. It was a lot of work to get here. So,
and listen, we didn't end up here on accident, right? Anybody who's been married for any length of time knows that marriage is work. You have to show up every day purposefully, purposeful action, purposeful want to be there. You know, it doesn't do it by itself. You have to be putting in the work every day.
Yeah. And it's much more than just putting in marriage work. You got to put in work into yourself.
Yes.
Most people don't do that. They think they need to put it into the marriage. They think they need to put it into the other person. No, you're wrong. You think they need to put it into your kids. Do not put it into yourself. You will have the most success if you put it into yourself, because you're basically taking care of yourself. So the person doesn't have to take care of you. Now you've got far more room to take care, or to please them, to pleasure them, to help them. So, yeah. Thank you all for letting us share that absolutely traumatic event with you.
Gosh, we didn't even scratch
the surface. 30 minutes is not very long.
Ooh, it is not.
You should know that Jaden came out of his coma a month later. He was in it for a month. And then we were at On With Life in Ankeny for another month. And those people over there are absolutely just stellar. And he went back to school and he graduated in real estate and finance. Yep. And Elijah is currently at ISU and he's going for his doctorate in psychology. And he is, both of them are crushing life and making mistakes and falling on their face and getting back up and all of those things. And Elijah, there's a shameless plug for Elijah. He's got a podcast called Spotlight Elijah More. You should check it out. He is the twin that lost his brother that day. So, subscribe, please. This is the end of episode 4. Next week's episode is going to be about communication. We're going to cover some things that you can use to help better communicate with not just your spouse, but your employees. If you have employees, your coworkers, everybody in between. We're going to do a little bit of teaching next week because I think that's going to be important, a little bit of gain.
I can't believe we're wrapping up week 4 already.
I know.
It's so crazy.
I know. Well, we are crazy. That is true. It is
crazy. True. Awesome.
Crazy in love.
Oh, shoot. Yep. You got me one up on that.
One-upped. You guys, thank you so much for listening. Please, honestly, hit the subscribe button below if you're not a subscriber, and comment below too. I mean, what are your thoughts? How have you handled challenge in the past, and did you hit it with gratitude? That would be. I'd love to hear your stories. All right.
Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for listening.
All right. Bye-bye.